Have you ever felt like you're putting in the work, yet you're not seeing the progress you want to become a better footballer? Like you're doing all the right things and you're still stuck and the needle is not moving. When you look back on this past year, have you achieved the goals that you set out to achieve, or did you just dabble and quit everything halfway because nothing seemed to work? If the latter is you, in this video, I'm going to give you 3 tips to escape this beginner hell and actually make the progress that you want to make. Too many times when we set out to perform a skill or a drill, we tend to go for the hardest one. We think that if we can master the hard one, then the easier one will come a lot easily to us. But just because something is hard to do, it does not make it worthwhile. Take an around the world as an example. Every pro footballer out there seems to know how to do this skill. So naturally, you'd want to try it too. You want to be able to fall into the category that says,
"Look at me, my ball control is great."
But what most people don't realize is that an around the world is actually a pretty complex skill. It's a mixture of not just ball control, but also timing and body coordination, all of which you will not be able to pull off if you don't first have your fundamentals down. And if you keep just practicing the skill over and over, the worst part is you're probably making yourself worse at the skill. Because now you're trying to add a roof without actually first having the foundation of a house laid down. And it doesn't take a genius to figure out that all of that is going to come crumbling down. Because like someone once said, if you shoot 10,000 balls with the wrong technique, it just makes you really good at shooting them really badly. So if you truly want to improve, you have to put your ego aside and start with the fundamentals. And there are 5 technical fundamentals that you need to master. It's passing, shooting, dribbling, ball control, and heading. If you want to be able to perform all the flashy skills out there, these are the 5 fundamentals that you first need to master. And I go into a lot more detail about this in this video, so check it out here. Now pick one technical aspect that you want to master, and from there pick one skill that you want to master. Say you choose passing, and from there you choose to work on your first touch. Go on YouTube, search for a video that teaches you how to do a first touch properly. Now take all the information that you've gathered from the video. Do not try and change anything about it. Don't try and add your own mix into it. Just do exactly as the video says. Then go up to a wall and hit the ball 1,000 times against it. And yes, you heard 1,000. And do it with all the information that you have gathered from the video. And if this sounds boring, then good, because this stage is supposed to be boring. Researchers have found that when you do a specific movement 300 to 500 times, the neurons in the cerebellum tend to form an automated pattern. After 1,000 correct repetitions, the pattern becomes unconscious. It literally moves from your conscious to your unconscious mind. But if you change the movement before 300 repetitions, that pattern never forms. You remain forever in conscious mode, and this is just slow, tiring, and error-prone. And remember, this not just works for the right patterns, but also for the wrong ones. So if you're doing the skill with a wrong movement pattern, you're only reinforcing bad behavior, which will then cause you to have to break that bad behavior first before you can form a new good behavior. And this will just take a lot longer for you to actually learn the skill. Now that you've worked on a particular skill 1,000 times, you're probably thinking to yourself that you should also try out other skills because one skill alone isn't going to get you through a 90-minute game. Well, you're right and wrong. You're right because you need to master all the fundamentals to be an all-rounded player, which means the technique that you use to improve your one-touch passing or whatever skill you chose, you also need to do that with all the other fundamental skills to be a good player. You're wrong because this is also where most players get stuck in eternal hell. Once they've practiced the fundamentals, they start collecting skills like their choice, but never actually putting them to good use. If you've ever seen a player be able to do a rainbow 3000 on the sidelines, but then when come game time, they can't even perform a body feint, this is why. And this is known as eternal student hell. You're constantly trying out something new, and that causes you to not actually master what you know, and therefore you always remain a student. And the only way to get out of this is to go back to the basics and perform the skills that you know at game-like speed. An example that I like to use is, if you hit the ball against the wall and you're able to control it, good, that's good for you. But in a game, if your teammate hits an 80-yard ping and there's a defender on your back, you might have the touch of a trampoline. That does not mean that you have good ball control. It just means that your ball control is conditional, and it's because you've practiced it in very specific conditions. In order to master a skill, you have to do it in various situations. Dribbling has to be done at game speed. Passes are not just limited to short passes, but also long passes with the inside and outside of your foot. And the true magic happens when you actually combine these skills. When you hit a ball against a wall and then turn around and do a cone weave, that is when you're truly reinforcing the game-like situation. But this is where most players stop. They think that once they can combine skills, it makes them good players. And it does make them good players, but it also limits them to the number of skills that they know. And this makes you a skilled artist, but not a true master. And in order to be a true master, here is how you get there. A while back, I was in Singapore for a personal training session. In the first session itself, the coach said to me that you are trying too hard. You're trying to control everything and you're trying to memorize the drill. You need to learn to let go and play freely. And needless to say, he was right. I was being too rigid. I was afraid to push the ball slightly further than I was used to, afraid that I might lose control of it. But this was only holding me back because I wasn't allowing myself to actually train and play at game-like speed. I was constantly thinking of what I was going to do next and how I was going to do it, and this was just slowing down my gameplay. Researchers that study embodied cognition found that when experts reach the highest level of mastery, something fascinating happens in the brain. Activity in the prefrontal cortex that is responsible for conscious decisions dramatically decreases during performance. Simultaneously, older brain structures start to take over. The expert isn't really doing the skill, more so the skill is being expressed through her. And this is exactly how Neymar plays football. It was found that when Neymar dribbles, he uses less than 10% of his prefrontal cortex than the amateur player does. Which means that while you're thinking about what to do, he doesn't have to think about it anymore because he's embodied it so well it just happens. This then frees up space in his mind for him to be able to think about other things like where he's going to pass the ball or where the pressure is coming from. When you've memorized 300 skills, you're limited to 300 options. But when you choose to embody the skill, you're giving yourself infinite options because then you're just creating answers on the fly. The point is to get so good at it that whenever you do the skill, you go into flow. And if you want a more detailed video on how to get into flow, check out my video right here. But thank you for watching. I hope you've gained something valuable from this video.